Hello, welcome back to project 3.1.1, data visualization. What's the point? We are going to resume after step 6, and in this section we're looking at cleaning up the data. Cleaning up data refers to manipulating the data, cleaning up the data, removing any invalid data. It could mean making a calculation that applies to every element in the data, extracting a certain property pertaining to every element in the data, applying a filter so they're only getting certain values or certain items in the data set, visualizing the data with a chart or a graph, combining or comparing all of the data in some way. So we are going to, as I highlighted here, we're going to identify which trials did not go according to plan and delete them. That is our first attempt to clean up this data. We know that there is bad data here. We know that there were some trials that went awry, and they really shouldn't be considered when a lab group is trying to draw conclusions from their experiment data. So we need to figure out which trials match with which data sets and remove the trials that were not valid. We are going to start by looking at our data. Let's go back to our data set here. And if we take a careful look, let's just start by looking at the headings. We actually can't even read the entire heading here. So we're going to click on this 1, and that selects the entirety of row 1, kind of in an infinite way. If I kept scrolling, all of row 1 is going to be selected. So let me go back to column A, and I'm going to use this function wrap text. So it looks like an arrow pointing to the right. And if I choose this arrow where we're kind of looping around to the next line, that indicates to Google Sheets that we want to see every line that's entered into that cell. Next, if I put my cursor right on the line between row 1 and row 2 in this heading area on the far left, where each of the rows are numerated, I can double click when I get to this double arrow icon, and as I double click, it will automatically resize row 1 such that we can see all of the data entered into every cell. The height will adjust automatically. So there we go. Now we can really see what each of our headings are, and that will help us begin to understand what data we're looking at. So go ahead and adjust your row 1, wrap the text, and adjust the size. And then we'll look at what do we have here. Dataset 1 time, Dataset 1 temperature, Dataset 1 temperature. Actually, I should say this is temperature 1 and this is temperature 1, both in Celsius. Column D is Dataset 2 time. Column E is Dataset 2 temperature 1 Celsius. And column F is dataset 2, temperature 1 degrees Celsius. And then G takes us into dataset 3. And you can kind of see, again, we have 3 columns for dataset 3. We have 3 columns for dataset 4. We have 3 columns for dataset 5. So as a way to kind of help us keep things straight, let's color code these things. So I'm going to click on the column label here, A, and then I'm going to drag over to B and C so that I have the entire column A and B and C all selected. And then I'm going to use the fill color tool, and I'm going to choose a light color so that my black text will contrast decently well with it. And if you scroll down, you'll see we selected the entirety of these columns. So if you go into hundreds and thousands of the rows, it's all selected, and it all got affected with the color. We're going to do the same thing for DEF. These 3 columns represent data set 2, and let's choose a different color for them. I'm going to go for the orange. GHI, again, we have 3 columns for data set 3, and I'm going to choose, I'll choose green. Data set 4, I'm going to make a light shade of blue. And data set 5, got a pastel purple. Okay, so this right away kind of helps me see, all right, now I see I've got 5 different concepts here, 5 different colors for my 5 different data sets. So this is just helping me to visually organize my data a little bit by color coding it. Next, let's go ahead and just scroll down and see. We did this a little bit in the last video if you watched it, and you can see some trials ended earlier than others. In this case, we have about 50 rows. In other cases, we have, let's see, trial 1 here has about almost 100 rows. In all of these cases, we tend to have a recording every second. Time is in seconds, right? In this case, I kind of see half seconds getting recorded for some reason. So it'll be interesting to learn more about that. And for some reason, these trials ended before this trial did. So it'll be interesting to see what all this data represents as we look more closely. What we're going to do to try to understand each of these data sets is create a chart, kind of like we did in the last video, but just this time just for one data set at a time. Let's see what happened in each of these trials. So in this case, I'm going to select all 3 columns for data set 1. And again, I just clicked on the column header and dragged so that I got A, B, and C. I'm going to choose to insert a chart. And I've got a nice, kind of a more easier to understand chart than I had in my last attempt when we were graphing all of the data all at once. So let's see what we can do here. We're going to choose the smooth line chart again. We do not need to graph time. Time is going to be our x-axis. So let's choose the 3 dots here and remove, so that time is not part of our graph. And instead we're going to make time the measurement of the x-axis. So when we select dataset 1 time for our x-axis, then we get to see these values. This is how much time went by as the trial was conducted. So it looks like we get up to almost 100 seconds, which does correspond to what we saw when we were scrolling through the data, doesn't it? Okay, I think that's all we want to do with our data. We're going to go ahead and customize our chart. And let's look at the chart and axis titles. The chart title can just be called Dataset 1. I think that's enough. And that's actually what Project Lead the Way recommends also. Let's call it Dataset 1. And if we go ahead and customize our horizontal axis title, that is going to be time in seconds. And the vertical axis title is going to be temperature in degrees Celsius. So that kind of helps us understand what we're looking at a little bit better. This kind of rounds out our chart. I'm going to close the chart tool there and drag my chart I want to drag it over here so it's not covering up the data. For some reason I'm not succeeding. Here we go. So I'm going to put it over here where I don't have a lot of data that I would be covering up. And I'm going to take a screenshot, as we did with our last graph, and we're going to paste it into our assignment document. Here's our screenshot. Let's paste it in, and as we look at it, can we take a minute to think about which trial do you think that would match up with? So you can review what all the trials are. If you scroll up, they're inside a yellow frame right here. So take a minute to reread the trials, and if you have a guess as to what this chart or what this data set corresponds to, you can write that in this next section of the assignment document. Which trial does each data set represent? If you wanted to make a guess, you could say trial and then put in the number here and maybe the description of what happened in that trial, just to help you remember which one it is. Okay, I'm going to let you go ahead and work on that on your own. Once you have that completed, our next job, if you look in Project Lead the Way, is basically to create a similar type of graph for every data set in this spreadsheet. So that's what we have here in step 12. Use the same process used for trial 1 to create a visualization for the 4 remaining trials. Note that you can display multiple charts at the same time, but they may appear directly on top of another. Well, we moved ours to a different area. Match each trial data to its corresponding data collection story. Determine which trial set is the one to keep. So what you would do is, since we are done with data set 1, we have this lovely graph over here for data set 1. We would select the 3 columns. Oops, that's not what I wanted to do. We would select the 3 columns for data set 2, like that. Okay. And you would go ahead and insert another chart and basically do exactly what we did before. We're going to do this for every data set. We are removing the time from the series list. You're going to add time as the x-axis, and you're going to customize the chart axis and the chart titles. So the chart title, you could call this data set 2, and then you would go on to label the horizontal axis, time in seconds, and the vertical axis is going to be temperature in Celsius every time. And then once you have your chart, my suggestion is again to drag it kind of out of the way so it's not covering up your data. And take a good look at your chart and think about, what experiment does this represent? You can already tell that it looks different from trial 1, or this isn't trial 1, but data set 1. So what trial do you think this might correspond to? You can hover over this line to see what the values are, of course. And once you have your graph all set up, you are going to want to take a screenshot and paste it into your assignment document. So this would be my data set 2, paste it in, And I would think, I wonder, maybe I can make a guess about which trial this corresponds to. So for data set 2, make your guess about what the trial is. And then you can move on to data set 3. Similarly, create another chart for it, make a guess as to which trial data set 3 corresponds to. Same thing for data set 4, same thing for data set 5. So once you have done this, you'll be really good at making charts in Google Sheets. Good luck with the project. Let me know if you have any questions.